Hey, welcome to this video about masturbation in marriage. If you're in a couple, if you're in a relationship, I recommend that you watch this video together, because there's so many people that never talk about this. Many couples that never talk about this. And it's something that sometimes it's sort of like taboo. We don't know whether we should talk about it or not. So I highly recommend you. This is a way of using me as a third person, so you maybe talk about it together. The fact is that we started to masturbate thousands and thousands of years ago because it was a survival thing. The males, we masturbated to maintain our sperm fresh and strong, so the possibility of getting the woman pregnant was higher. And women masturbated because it helped them to have strong vaginal walls and for sperm retention. And that was the basic thing why we started to masturbate. And that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Of course, it gives pleasure, and that's another reason why we did it. But one of the main reasons why we did it it's sort of like our instinct that made us do that to maintain the species. Now, why do we do it today? Well, today we have a lot more consciousness, and we do it as part of our sex life. It's really part of our sex life. Actually, how we learn is how we do or we take our first steps into sexuality. We start to masturbate, and that's how we discover ourselves, we discover our sexuality, our sexual organs. We have our first orgasms alone most of the time. So it's a way of self-discovery in terms of sexuality. It's really a great way to connect with your sexual desires, with your sexual fantasies. It's part of our own sexual life. And this is what I want to get across in this video. Masturbation is going to be with you for the rest of your life. It's part of your sexual life, of your own sexual life as a person, as an individual. So first you have the right to do it whenever you want, and second, it's sort of like connecting with your own self. And it's a great way to connect with your fantasies, to connect with your own sexual world, if you want to call it like that. There's another reason why we masturbate, especially men. Men today, we masturbate. We have to masturbate at some point, especially if we're in a relationship. I'm going to talk about this later, about relationship or being alone. But men, we produce semen continually. It never stops to be produced. And it accumulates. So it accumulates in different areas of our, the prostate and other little organs that we have there. And we need to release it at some point. You cannot stay there forever. It has to be released. So masturbation is a way to do it. If you're alone, if you're in a couple, I'll talk about that later. And when we were young, it happened to me when I was younger. I didn't know anything about masturbation. And we have wet dreams. We actually ejaculate without even touching ourselves. So that happens. And masturbation is basically part of our life. Now let me give you some benefits, some physical benefits about masturbation. When we masturbate, we release endorphins. Endorphins reduce pain and make us feel good. Many studies say that it helps to reduce stress, it helps to sleep and beat off insomnia. It boosts the metabolism. It releases sexual tension and also improves self-esteem. It relieves muscle cramps when the woman has a period. It relieves them and releases muscle tension. And it's also a great way to strengthen your pelvic floor area, your PC muscle. So it's a great way to do that. Now the question, how much should you masturbate? What is the correct number? Well, there's not a correct number for masturbation. It depends on the person. Every single person is different, man and woman. Normally, historically, men masturbate more than women for the reasons I just told you about the physical needs, but there's not a number. It depends on how strong your sex drive is. There's people who actually masturbate every day when they're alone, mostly. And some people masturbate once a week. It depends. There's not a right number. But I will tell you something. The right number is for each one different, but you need to be aware whether it's actually affecting your life some way negatively. So, for example, if you're in a relationship, and you masturbate too much, it can affect your sexual life. And you know how much that is. You know the number. You know if it's affecting you or not. What do I mean by that? For example, if your wife wants to have sex and you have masturbated too many times, and you may have experienced, some people have a very strong sex drive, it depends on you, but some people might have trouble having a strong erection or ejaculating taking too long for ejaculation and things like that. If it's affecting your sex life, if you may not have desire to have sex, because if you've masturbated too much, when your wife comes and let's have some sex, and you're like, well, I already masturbated 5 times, I don't feel like having sex. That's affecting your relationship negatively, and that can affect your sex life and your relationship. So that you need to be aware, and that's masturbating too much. If it's affecting your sex life, you're masturbating too much. So find that balance of how much you should masturbate that it does not affect your sex life. It can affect negatively on your job as well. Some people are so addicted to masturbation because masturbation can become addictive. If you masturbate too much, we want to masturbate more and more and more, especially men. And some people masturbate 3 times a day. So that's addiction. That's like, having that need that's not very healthy. So it can affect your job, maybe. I don't know. Whatever, if it's affecting you negatively somehow in your life, you're masturbating too much. So that way you can find the number. And you have to find your number. I don't know what it is, but masturbation is healthy, but again, like everything, has to be in balance with your life. So now let's get to the question of this video, okay? Is it correct to masturbate in marriage? And yes, of course it is correct, because masturbation is for you for the rest of your life. It's part of you, it's part of your sexual life, it's one of your rights, and it's good and healthy to connect with your own sexuality. What I recommend is that you talk about it with your couple. That's what I recommend, because many people are sort of like they feel guilty or they feel shame for masturbating during marriage, which is a mistake. Many people feel like they're cheating on the other person. They're cheating on their wife or the husband if they masturbate. And that's not right, because we all have our own sexuality. My sexuality is mine, and my wife has her own sexuality. And we get together and we share our sexualities. Now, I may have fantasies or I may have thoughts that I want to enjoy myself only. I want to do it on my own, and I have to find the right space, the right moment, and as long as it doesn't affect my sexual life. As I said before, if you're alone, you can masturbate as much as you want. That's no problem, of course. Do whatever you want. But if you're in a relationship, you have to find that balance. There should be no guilt or shame in masturbating. It's part of your life, it's healthy, it's physically healthy, and it's also mentally healthy. What should you think when you masturbate? What should you imagine or get inspired with? Men, we are very used to masturbate to pornography, and we like to see. Women maybe imagine more things. It depends. There's a video on pornography in this course, I'm not going to get into that. So whatever you're doing, whatever it's fine for you, that's good. But there's nothing wrong. I can have my own fantasies, which I can keep to myself. I rather share it with my wife, but some people might not want to even share it. That's good as well. We can always have our own world as long as we are faithful to ourselves and to the other person. And faithful, I mean that you see, if I'm masturbating thinking about my secretary or thinking about a girl that I know and I would love to have sex with her, if I'm masturbating to her, like thinking about her, well, I should think about what I'm doing, because maybe there's something wrong. Maybe, if I'm really thinking about that girl all the time, there might be something that I need to solve with my girlfriend or my wife or with that girl. I don't know. That's up to you. But the same thing with girls. If they masturbate thinking about one guy in particular, they know that's part of their life. You can do it one time. What I mean is, if you do it one time because you had that fantasy, okay, that's fine. But if you have to, do you repeat that all the time? You're always thinking about that person? Well, maybe you should take a look at that. But masturbating thinking about other people or situations or pornography, whatever that is, or imagination, or fantasy, that's fine. It's part of your sexual life. Your fantasies are part of you, it's you. Okay, and we are owners of our own sex life. So my recommendation is that you talk about it, actually, that you sit down and if you're watching this video together, this is a great way to, hey, what do you masturbate to? What do you think? And don't feel pressure to answer. If you don't really want to answer, that's okay. You know, we all have our own secrets, let's say, or our own world. That's fine, but I recommend to do it. And actually, I recommend to masturbate together. To, you know, each of you, you're masturbating on your own in front of each other. That's something that I highly recommend to do, because it's a great way to connect. It's a great way to see what the other person likes to do when they masturbate. And it's also a great way to know how they do it, because then you can do it to them. So masturbating to each other and masturbating each other separately, you masturbating yourself and she or he is masturbating himself. Okay, it's a great way to it's a sexual fantasy as well. So to sum it up, I encourage you to talk about it. If you don't want to talk about it, or you feel like this is something really not good in the couple, if one of you thinks that it's not right to masturbate, I have to tell you, if you're a woman and you think that your husband doesn't masturbate, you're wrong. Your husband masturbates for sure. So he does. And women also do, maybe not as much, but they do, most of them. So talk about it. And if you feel like the other person doesn't want to have sex often enough, maybe they're masturbating too much. And this is something that it has happened to me, so I know how it works. You know, when you start with a couple, you have sex all the time, and then suddenly you have start having less sex, and each of you are going to start masturbate alone. And that's not healthy. Okay, when you do too much masturbation and don't get together enough, that's not healthy. There must be a balance. Masturbation should be, in my opinion, okay, this is how I see it, it should be like spontaneous moments that you can, like, I don't know, this is how I feel it. Some days I might feel, whoa, or especially when I'm traveling away or things like that. I'm like, whoa, I'm gonna masturbate now, and I'm gonna give myself a treat, okay? And I may watch something, or I may just imagine, or I might get some oil and do a long masturbation, which is fantastic. I'll talk about that in other videos. So, you know, find your balance. It's very important to find that balance, and that's why I encourage you to talk, because talking gets people to understand each other and to know each other better, and to get that right balance that will keep your relationship alive. Because sometimes, you know, when you start to drift apart, you know, sometimes it's difficult to come back. So make sure you talk about it and go into it without any judgment, because that's one of the worst things, when you judge the other person, or when you tell the other person that, you know, that's not right, or that's immoral, or things like that. That's not right. Okay, you have to understand that the other person has some needs, and maybe he has some problems or some addiction, like I said before, you know, an addiction that he might have or she might have. So talk about it if you feel like that's a problem. If you don't feel like it's a problem, and you feel like talking about it because it's a great way to talk about and learn about the other person's fantasies, then do it, because it's a great way to do it. So that's it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed, that it serves you and it gives you some clues about masturbation, and I will see you in the next one.